We travel back to the United States to Fayetteville, West Virginia. This small town is home to a strange and unexplained case that would capture the hearts and minds of Americans for years to come. A house engulfed in flames, a string of unexplained circumstances, and the disappearance of 5 children. This week's case is the vanishing of the Sodder children, a tale that would haunt the nation long after that fire had burned out. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our next episode of History and Mystery. I am here with our co-host as well. I'm Charles.
I'm Raven.
I'm Jaime.
I'm Trevor.
And this week, as previously mentioned, we are covering the vanishing of the Sodder children. And to start us off, I'll go ahead and start off with this next one. The night of the tragic events was unusually timed. It was Christmas Eve, and the father, George Sodder, who was 50 years old, had already taken to his room for the night. The mother, Jeannie Sodder, who was 42, was preparing for bed when Marion Sodder, 23, their oldest daughter, asked if Martha, 12, Jeannie Sodder Jr., 8, and Betty Sodder, 5, could stay up and play with their gifts their eldest sister had bought for them. Jeannie agreed and went to bed, taking Sylvia Sodder, age 2, with her. Jeannie heard her children's laughter as they played until she eventually drifted off to sleep at 10:30 p.m.
At 12:30 a.m., Jeannie woke up to the sound of the phone ringing. She quickly left her room, trying not to wake George or Sylvia. As she approached the phone, she noticed that the downstairs lights were on. When she answered, a strange sound greeted her. A woman's voice, hard to hear, asking to speak a name Jenny didn't recognize. The brief exchange ended with laughter that unnerved Jenny. After hanging up, Jenny went to investigate the lights still being on. When she reached the den where the children had been playing, she found Marion asleep on the couch. She also noticed that the curtains were open and the door was unlocked. Jenny, trying not to wake Marion, closed the curtains, locked the doors, and turned off the lights before returning to bed. At 1 a.m., Jenny was awoken again, this time by a loud banging noise on the roof. It seemed from side to side, slowly moving towards the edge of the house, then abruptly stopped. But, presuming it was an animal, Jenny tried to get some rest again. But then at 1:30 a.m., she jolted awake by the smell of smoke. She glanced at the clock and rushed to Sylvia's crib. Jenny quickly woke George and ran through the house to locate the source. She determined the smoke was coming from the area of George's office, telephone, and the electrical box. Shouting, "Fire!" they tried to wake the children and evacuate the house. Outside, George and Jenny realized that only 3 of the children, Marion, George Jr., and John, were outside, but then the others were still inside. George Sr. rushed back into the house, covering his face with his arm in an attempt to shield himself from the smoke, hoping to rescue the 5 children sleeping in the attic. But when he reached the stairs, he found them engulfed in flames. Desperate, George introduced his 2 eldest sons to grab the ladder and help him scale the roof. However, the ladder, which had always been left in the same spot, was nowhere to be found. Thinking quickly, George grabbed a bucket that collected rainwater, hoping to fight the fire, but it was frozen solid from the cold winter night. He then managed to scale the roof and punched open a window, but the smoke and flames were too intense for him to do anything. On top of that, his arms were badly cut from the broken glass. Determined, George ran to his work trucks parked down the street, thinking that he could use them to scale the 2nd floor of the house, but neither truck would start. Back at the house, Marion was frantically trying to call 911. She ran inside the nearest phone, but the line was dead. She then sprinted to a neighbor's house, pounding on the door, and tried calling again, but once again, the line was dead. In their third attempt, Marion reached another neighbor further up the road. This neighbor quickly drove into town and alerted the fire chief, Morris. Despite the fire apartment being only about 2.5 miles away, they didn't arrive until 8 o'clock a.m. on Christmas morning. Meanwhile, the house collapsed 45 minutes after fire started.
Fire Chief Morris sifted through the collapsed remains of the house but found no signs of human remains. He concluded, based on the family's witness statements, that the missing children must have burned to ash in the fire. He also declared the cause of the fire was faulty wiring. At first, George and Janine accepted their child's fate, but in the days that followed, they began to question the reports. A few days later, George searched for the missing ladder and found it at the bottom of an embankment 75 feet from the house. This discovery made him suspect foul play. Someone had deliberately moved the ladder. Further investigations into the fire's cause also left Janine unsettled. She recalled the family's vivid memory of seeing the lights still on, even as the house was burning to the ground. Additionally, several appliances had other objects in the house appeared to have survived the fire. Janine spoke with crematorium staff who explained that at 2,000 degrees for 2 hours, bones still remain. However, the fire had only burned for 45 minutes, and given the wind conditions and the short duration, the temperature could not have reached 2,000 degrees. Many sightings of the missing children were reported over the years, some of which are more plausible than others. Here are a few of the most significant. The night of the fire, a woman reported seeing the children in a car that drove by while the fire was still burning. The next day, 15 miles west of Fayetteville, a woman who operated a tourist shop reported seeing the children. She served them breakfast and recalled that there was a car with Florida license plates at the tourist court. Quote, I served them breakfast. There was a car with Florida license plates at the tourist court too. A week later, a woman reported seeing four of the 5 children at a Charleston hotel. Her police statement read, the children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of Italian extraction. I do not remember the exact date. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile and refused to allow me to speak to these children. I sensed that I was being frozen out, so I said nothing more. They left early the next morning. Weeks before the fire, George received a threatening visit from a life insurance salesman. The man ominously said, quote, your house will go up in smoke and your children will be destroyed. You're going to pay for the dirty remarks you've been making about Mussolini. George, an Italian immigrant who had been outspoken against Mussolini, found the threat deeply disturbing. Shortly after, another man visited the house claiming to inspect the wiring. He warned that the new fuse box could cause a fire someday, despite a recent inspection clearing it. In the days following up to the fire, the Sodder boys noticing a suspicious car parked near their home. The occupants were seen watching the younger children as they returned from school.
Okay, let's hop into our theories and speculations. So our first theory is it's political retaliation. George Sodder's outspoken criticism of Mussolini could have made him a prime target. This theory suggests that pro-fascist sympathizers sought revenge on the family. There's a lot of evidence supporting this theory. First one being that the life insurance salesman threatened George with the fire and destruction due to his political views. The area had a significant Italian immigrant population, some of whom may have held fascist sympathies, and suspicious individuals were seen watching the children before the fire. The children may have been kidnapped and taken as a form of political retaliation, perhaps even smuggled out of the country. But the salesman's prediction of the fire and destruction did come true within weeks. Our next theory is the insurance salesman conspiracy. Some believe that the same salesman who issued the threats orchestrated the disappearance, possibly with accomplices. Now, the salesman was aggressive and made very specific threats. His knowledge of the family and their home suggests inside information, and he may have used the fire as a covering for the kidnapping. After being insulted or rebuffed, the salesman may have worked with others to abduct the children. And the salesman's eerie words, quote, "Your children will be destroyed," quote, were chillingly accurate. Our next theory is organized crime or child trafficking ring, and this theory posits that the children were taken by an organized group, possibly the mafia or a trafficking ring. Numerous reports of sighting of the children were controlling adults. The witnesses described the adults as hostile and evasive. No ransom was ever demanded, which aligns with a child trafficking scenario rather than extortion. And the children were kidnapped, relocated, and forced in a new identity or hidden away, possibly. But the hotel witness described how the adults wouldn't even allow her to speak to the children, almost as if they were being held captive. Our next is the staged disappearance or family involvement. Now this one is a fringe theory that suggests that someone in the family staged the fire and took the children for reasons that we don't know. No human remains were ever found, the trucks wouldn't start, and the ladder was missing, suggesting intentional sabotage. Strange phone calls and noises just before the fire added just to the suspicion. Someone inside the family believed the children were in danger and chose to hide them, maybe. Now, if this theory is true, why did the children never reappear or make contact again? Now, our last theory is an accidental death and cover-up, and this theory suggests that the children died in the fire, but the authorities mishandled the case or concealed key information. The fire department at the time was poorly equipped, and they did not investigate properly. Chief Morris allegedly buried a box of ashes without informing the family, and authorities were quick to dismiss alternate theories despite lack of concrete evidence. The children may have perished in the fire, but due to some incompetence or shame, the bodies were never found. Despite reports contradicting cremation science, Fire Chief Morris refused to investigate any further.
Alright guys, that concludes our theories, so let's do our little discussion we always have here on what we think the most valid theory is. Let's go off of just what we just read right here without any more talking into it. Just everyone goes around. What's your theory? Let's start with Trevor. What theory do you think the most of?
I'm not quite sure yet.
Don't worry, he's got to reread them because he wasn't paying attention.
Okay, well, Jaime.
I don't know what you're talking about.
To be honest,
Yeah, what theory do you think goes more?
I think the insurance salesman conspiracy, just because of like the threats that he made to the family, of like the quote unquote, your children will be destroyed, and also saying that your house will be engulfed in smoke. That is way too much of coincidence for it to not be like an actual threat, or not like how would I put it? For it not to be true, to be honest. Like way too much for not to be a coincidence and stuff like that. So I feel like that the insurance salesman conspiracy might be the closest thing to the solution to the story, I guess.
Yeah, Raven.
I have to go with Jaime's thing of the salesman. I think that one's the most probable in my opinion. But I think if I had to pick another one, I'd pick the child trafficking one. I just don't know why they would light the house on fire.
Yeah, I feel like there's some motive relating to that.
Yeah, I think that's why it goes more with the salesman, especially since he was at the house before. Like, I don't know if they used the ladder after that, but the ladder was moved, so the salesman could have moved it, or they were watching the kids, so they could have moved it any time if he had accomplices.
Okay, Trevor, back to you.
I'm gonna go with the political retaliation, because like you've all been going off of has been the salesman, and he's also been involved in the political retaliation. and it could also
never
explain the fire, because if it's a political retaliation, it'd be more aggressive. So the fire could make sense in that scenario.
Yeah, that would have been like my second choice of the theory of what could have happened to it and stuff like that. And yeah, like like a political retaliation would be more aggressive and stuff like that. And like you said, it includes the salesman. It's just like it's either of those two. To be honest, it's like both might be the actual reason why that happened or like stuff like that. But I'm still going with the insurance salesman conspiracy.
So the reason the two are so the first theory and the second theory are different for two very reasons. So number one, the first theory does not talk about the Italian salesman being involved. It just talks about it being a coincidence that he's involved. The second one's mainly that he did it because he was pissed that he didn't take his insurance. There were a couple things not mentioned in here, or they might have been mentioned. I forget. The days after this happened, there was George went back to the house and he did find where the Italian found where the ladder was. He found it about 75 feet away from the house down a hill. While the phone lines were reported to be cut, and a guy admitted to cutting them, but he said he didn't start the fire or take the children. And then also, he got arrested for cutting the phone lines. This was, again, not really... It was very limited evidence. Shoddy police work. It was 1945 when this happened. Or 1944, 1945, one of those two. But then at the same time, what also happened was the neighbors reported also seeing a guy with like the tool, I forget what it's called, the tool to raise engine blocks out of cars near George's trucks the night of. So that also could have related. And I forget, it might have said it in here, but those trucks were working earlier that day perfectly fine, no issues.
Yeah, it said it earlier in the text.
But I would have to go with probably one of the first two again with you guys, so. Any other input?
No.
Okay, I feel like this was a pretty open and shut case that they didn't solve, at least in our opinions. There's probably some more evidence that I missed to throw in here, but yeah. So we'll move on to our conclusion here for this first episode. Well, first episode, I say that because we have to record 2 today, but anyways. The vanishing of the Sodder children remains one of America's most haunting cold cases. A fire without remains, a family tormented by sightings and silence. Were the children truly lost in the flames or stolen in the night? The evidence is fragmented, but the real question endure. What happened on that silent Christmas Eve, and why did no one ever come home? The mystery leaves us with only whispers, ashes, and theories, but no closure.